Ready? Okay. We're going to go pretty quick. I've got a lot of information that I've crammed into this, okay? So buckle up. If you've got questions, probably best to just write it down. Find me afterwards because this is going to be more lecture style. Just go, okay? So as impressive as this list is of the names and titles of the goddess, I can assure you there are very many more. Okay, in fact, I didn't even get to names. These are just titles and epithets, okay? And that's not even all of them. I just couldn't fit any more on this slide. So here's what we have. But I hope this illustrates how much Egypt has to offer regarding the divine feminine. And first I want to say that I am humbled to have been asked to speak here today on such a meaningful and sacred topic. And I'm also thrilled with the amazing ladies that organized this event and for them having thought to include Egypt. Because in Egypt is where you find so much, right? If you're able to drill down into most cultures and religions, you'll find her, right? The divine feminine. But I'd say that you'd be hard-pressed to find more information about her anywhere than in Egypt. And first of all, I'm not going to stand up here and pretend to be objective, right? I do have a perspective. Like even from a scientific point of view, we'd say nothing is seen, nothing is seen without an observer, right? Nothing is seen independent of an observer. The very act of observation imposes a perspective, right? And a mother in the heavens is a part of my perspective. Because of my own personal experience, she's a given, okay? So just proving her existence through textual evidence has never really been my interest. I wanted more information about her. And that is a major part of what drew me to Egypt. Because you're not having to work around redactions, okay? Like later editorializing and reworking by scribes of copies as they get passed down through the millennia, right, and changed. In Egypt, you've got the original texts, okay? And they're carved right there in stone. And, there's no hiding her. She's right there. I felt like so many wonderful and brilliant scholars were working so hard merely to justify belief in her existence. And I acknowledge that is an oversimplification. But at the end of the day, I was coming away so often with this feeling of like, yep, she's there. Meanwhile, in Egypt, here she is. She's central to every text. She's splashed across every wall. There's no getting around her, okay? She's super important. And so for me, the experience of Egypt can be expressed from this hieroglyph here, Amis, okay, Amis, to rejoice, be glad, rejoicing. And specifically, it's the rejoicing of a child having been reunited with its mother. That's what this is here, this determinative, the young calf nursing from its mother, okay? So I wanted to share a passage from Dendera, a temple that's dedicated to the goddess, where it says, "There is beauty in seeing her. How joyful to see her, how sweet to follow her. How beautiful is what she places in the heart." And spoiler alert, what she places in the heart, among other things, is light and truth. So now notice, this doesn't say how wonderful it is to read about her. This is experiential, okay? It's to see her, to follow her, to find what she placed in your heart. So it seems to me that no one can really tell you what the divine feminine is, right? She has to be felt and remembered and experienced. I would characterize it less of discovery and more of a process of recovery, okay? So now, any discussion of the Egyptian gods should begin with their word for God or gods. That's this here, this flagpole right in the middle. That is necher, okay, in the plural necheru. And typically that's translated God or gods. However, I think more characteristic of how the Egyptians use them would be to say divine or divine being. not unlike maybe the Western tradition where you have angels that also populate the heavens. So to say nature, you've got a being of some level of divinity. Okay, does that make more sense? That's what we're talking about here. And so right from Jump Street, I want everybody to appreciate the ancient mindset when we talk about names. Okay, names don't just sound pretty, they are titles. They have meaning. Okay, they're titles that convey purpose or function, powers, that sort of thing. Okay, so one name or title can apply to more than one being. Right? Conversely, more than one being can have many different names and titles, just like we saw at the beginning, right, with this whole list of titles. So when we see this vast pantheon of gods, I want you to understand that a great many of them could be considered expressions of a single individual, okay? Like different facets of one person, right? You could, you might be described as a mother and a daughter and a sister and a wife and a chocolatier, right? And a CEO or a horse whisperer. I don't know, right? You could have lots of different titles that apply to one person, right? As facets of an individual. So same sort of thing. We get this bunch of different figures at all differing degrees of power, unique functions, but they all share a common origin, okay? They all originate from the Nun. This would be a depiction of the Nun. That's these waters, okay? The primeval ocean. The Nun are the infinite primordial waters of dark, unorganized matter that exist outside of time and from which all life emanates, okay? In fact, it can be called the Sha'anach, the sea of life. They say the breath of the Nun, Buchanach, it exhales the breath of life, okay? And like I said, it's this timeless place with an infinite number of tomorrows and an endless number of yesterdays, if you can even wrap your mind around that. And it's just this eternal now from where all life emerges. Right here, this is a picture of two forms of the goddess, okay? The mother as the cow above and as the heavens, Nut on the right, or on the left rather. And the hawk then would be the representation of glorious life emerging from those waters, that pool of waters, okay? So if all life emerges from there, critically that means that we share a common source. You could say that we exist upon the same principles. Like begets like. In the Gospel of Thomas, that's an early Christian document. Many say that it actually predates the four canonical Gospels in the Bible. By the way, found in Egypt. And there's a verse there that says, a horse begets a horse, and a god begets a god. So you become like where you come from. So in Egypt, their link to the gods is based on affinity and sameness. Okay, it's not other and completely different and apart. And that's, in fact, actually where this comes from, right? The scarab. So this is the hieroglyph Kheper in Egyptian. To be, to become, to transform, to evolve, to progress, okay? It's the rising sun or a being ascending, okay? Some state of ascension. They're in the process of becoming or at some stage of progression. Well, progression toward what? Becoming what, right? If you can say along with an Egyptian that I am a daughter of Amun or I am a son of Ra, well, that has enormous implications, right? That's profound because what are you becoming? What are you progressing toward? Well, to become like your parents, okay? They're following the pattern of a most high father and mother, which an Egyptian would say Amun and Mut, as one of many different names, okay? So we've got this hierarchy of beings at all different phases, but when I say that, I don't mean like a corporate bureaucracy, okay? This isn't like you've got your area vice president and your regional representatives, okay? This is much more like a family, okay? With beings at different levels of experience and wisdom, different roles and responsibilities, with children becoming like their parents. And that's why they're using the scarab, that beetle. It's the larva inside that dung ball, right? And then it transforms into the beetle. Or the Egyptians will use the tadpole that turns into the frog. Or the serpent, right? The snake that sheds its skin. So these are all examples of things that are shedding their skin. They're changing their outer form while retaining their essential individual identity. Okay, that's a key point to remember. Okay, they're retaining their identity. So the first name or title of a goddess I want to explore is Nut. This is Nut here. Okay. Not to be confused with the Nun, those primordial waters that we talked about. Rather, she's situated in those waters. That's that blue surrounding her, okay? So she can be thought of and is described sometimes as this beautiful swimmer floating as the starry sky above us, okay? Stretching from horizon to horizon. She is the vault of the heavens, okay? That's Nut with her starry body. Even more specifically, she can be called the Milky Way. Okay, with that shining band, again, stretching from horizon to horizon. This is a wood carving of a spoon here, where they've depicted Nut as the swimmer. Okay, like I said, swimming in those cosmic waters. She's holding a duck there. Why a duck? Well, that's the hieroglyph for Sa, or Sat, meaning son or daughter. Okay, so she's embracing her child. She has her child that she's in the heavens. Here's Nut's face floating in those cosmic waters. Here she's called she who illuminates the heavenly waters. Her head and arms then are in the western horizon, right? Where the sun sets, death, okay? And notice at her arms at the base there, that's where she would embrace the dead, okay? Be that a son or a daughter, male or female, doesn't matter. She would embrace the child, bring them up to her lips, and swallow them. Okay, so she swallows them, she ingests them. And then through this gestation, through her brilliant body, right, they're then born in the east, okay, from her womb in the east. So horizon to horizon there. And she's not only thought of as the sky, but as the duat, okay? And we have life coming from death here. So in fact, actually, before I get into the duat, let me explain that with the mother, right? Because she ingests death, rather, and produces life. It's very evocative of the Egyptian mindset because their very word for mother is Mut, okay? Mut is the word for mother. They write it with a little vulture hieroglyph. That's their word for mother, Mut. It's homophonic, or it sounds the same as their word for death, which is Mut, okay? So mother and death, and to them that's significant. It reveals an underlying connection there. Okay, just like the vulture that takes dead carrion and feeds its young with it. Right, it's producing life from death. So she is ingesting this death and making life. Okay, so she's the starry heavens. She's the Milky Way, like we said. But in addition to that, she is the duat, another Egyptian term for you. Okay, the duat is the netherworld, or the world of spirits, okay? And it's located within her body. You're journeying through her body. So it's hidden. You can't see it under normal circumstances, okay? It's here, but it's set dimensionally apart from our level of reality, okay? Or our level of density, if you prefer, okay? So that's Nut there, right? And the duat is considered a place of darkness most often. But the word dwa means dawn. So it's not just darkness, it's growing light. Okay? One is not meant to linger and wallow in the darkness. They're moving toward greater light. Okay? You don't just stay there, you're moving through. So you're passing these thresholds, these gates, these passages. And as you do, you're becoming more and more your true self. You're sloughing off everything that's not the authentic you. Okay? And so that's what you're seeing here with all of these beings at different stages on that journey, okay? Moving at their own pace until they can move out and ascend to higher spheres, okay? Here's another image of Nut. As, you know, here's her star-spangled body, right, as the heavens above. And now below, that's her husband, Geb, okay? So you have the queen and the heavens, and you have the king and earth as Geb, okay? To put it in context for you, maybe you've heard of Osiris and Set. Those are Geb's sons, okay? So Geb is like the quintessential king, okay? He's the epitome of a king. His sons are Osiris and Set. He chooses Osiris to be his chosen heir, right? You gives him the title of firstborn. You're the heir. Set in jealousy kills him, right? Because he wants all the glory. And then Osiris is the dying and resurrecting god. Okay? So these are his parents, if that helps. Okay? This is Nut and Geb, the heavens and the earth, the queen and the king. Now, because that journey begins with the embrace by Nut after death, she can be called, and is called in many of the texts, the sarcophagus. She can be called the sarcophagus. And that's what these pictures are. These are stone carvings of the underside of the lid of a sarcophagus. Okay? So if you're laying in the sarcophagus, this is placed over you. And now, so then you have your heavenly, celestial, like mother, literally spreading her body over you as you return to her. Does that make sense? You guys are following me? Okay. And, sarcophagus, that's the Greek word, right? Sarko meaning flesh or meat, phagos to eat. So flesh eating. Remember we talked about her eating the child to produce new life. We'll see her welcoming a child back home. Okay, here's more sarcophagi, some painted. Even the starry ceiling of a pyramid, okay, on the inside of a pyramid can be considered her, Nut. Now, this design down here, this is called the palace facade, okay? The palace facade. And it's representing the king. So it could be called the heavenly palace or the pillars of heaven. It's representing Geb. Remember we just saw that with Geb and Nut down? This is like a architectural representation of that, with Nut arched over and Geb on the bottom. And so they literally surround their child. So at death, they're returning to this maternal and paternal space. And even though Nut is called the sarcophagus, when you really drill down into it, the sarcophagus is both. So you have her as this lid being lowered onto the base. So now on the base, you can see this palace facade design. Okay? So it's Geb, again, surrounding them. So when that lid is lowered, male and female are united so that rebirth can occur. Okay? Well, we said in Greek sarcophagus and flesh eater, right? Those aren't the Egyptian terms. In Egyptian, they have a lot of different names for the coffins, and there's many layers. You've got like 3 to 7 or more different layers. Now, the whole assembly can be called the Neb-Ankh. The Neb-Ankh. That's the Lord of life, or the possessor of life. It possesses life. So it really shows you their attitude to name a sarcophagus the possessor of life, right? It's just, death is just a gate to new existence, is how they see it, okay? In fact, the innermost coffin can be called the Suhet, which is the same word as egg or embryo. So again, this containing life. The wrappings themselves can be called wet, which probably comes from the verb wetet, meaning to beget, which probably doesn't make sense unless you understand this is Geb and Nut uniting to beget, right? To beget new life, rebirth. And a mummy that's been completed and they have performed all of the rites on this, right, to make it sacred, it's then called the Sa, meaning noble or dignified. So we have this idea that that death is the ultimate initiation for them to new states of nobility and dignity, okay? In fact, the oldest religious texts in the world are the pyramid texts, okay? This is the most complete and oldest version of that we have in this pyramid of Unas. This is my favorite stop in Egypt. I know it doesn't look like a whole lot right here. It's been dismantled throughout the years. But the inside is intact, and every inch is carved with hieroglyphs of the most profound religious texts. They really are just super profound. If you come with me to Egypt, I'm taking you through this thing, and I'm reading right off the walls, and so, it's pretty rad, right? But it deals with this very thing, right? About the sarcophagus we read in these texts. Your mother has spread herself over you. She has caused you to be divine. She encloses you from all evil things in her name of great encloser. Do you guys catch that? She causes you to be divine, right? It's this idea of the holy uniting itself to the unholy in order to make it holy. Okay, so an example of like the queen. If a queen were to marry a commoner, well, that doesn't make her common. Instead, it elevates the commoner, right, to a new royal status. That's very much the idea of what we're talking about here. Now, and this is one of my favorites. This is the blessing recited. Again, this is one of the coffin texts. As the lid is closed. And it's this beautiful dialogue between Geb and Nut, between the father and the mother. Okay, they're speaking to each other. And Geb calls out to Nut and he says, Nut, you were glorious and powerful before you were born. Right? How awesome is that? She's been glorious and powerful in the eternities prior to this particular creation. He goes on, may you enfold this deceased initiate with life and power so he will not die. May you make him a glorious being inside you. Now, I told you she's central to every text, right? And so here, in the pyramid text, the oldest religious text in the world, not only is she a main character, the whole thing kicks off with it. The opening lines are from her mouth. This is her words, okay? And she's speaking about the child within her. And she's declaring his or her identity, right? As is her right as the mother, right? She says, Meripusai, this is my beloved son, with whom I am well pleased. Then Geb chimes in and says, this is the son of my body, and he's also well pleased. Then it goes on, the mother announces her intentions in all of this, right? The very purpose of his creation, she says, I have given to him the horizons, that he might be empowered therein as Hor Aketi, or Horus of the horizons. Okay, this is the sign for horizon, Achet. Okay, Achet. It's the horizon, and like the literal horizon, it's a place of transition, right? Where you've got the difference between night and day. So it's a gate, it's a threshold, a place of transition, a place of transformation. So what is she saying there? I've given to him horizons, plural, right? I give you these horizons, are these series of experiences, these thresholds to pass through so that, what? So that you can be empowered and enriched like Horus, the glorious risen being before you who's already trod the way and you're following. They're called Shimsuhor, the followers of Horus. Okay, they're following the way. And so that's the whole, that's this beautiful idea, right? The transition and change is inevitable, right? Challenges will be had, but our resultant growth or enlightenment is optional. Okay, so part of this journey, as we're going through the Duat, passes through the Nun, those waters, okay, those cosmic waters of renewal. And entering this place, remember I said it's outside of time, I like to compare it to Shavasana. If any of you guys do yoga, know what I'm talking about at the end, right? Corpse pose where you just get to lay there. Many yogis will call this the most important pose in yoga, right? All that you've done, all that work, everything that's come before, that's the moment where it can be integrated into you, right? Or like at the end sometimes, maybe you're reaching up and inhaling, right? And bringing all that energy and intention and then pulling that and concentrating it down into the heart and, letting it permeate throughout. That kind of idea, okay? That's how I think of this idea of passing through the Nun, okay? A lot of the benefit happens there. So these are renewing waters and they can be expressed as the embrace from the goddess. Okay, just one of my favorite pictures. I'm going to say that about like every picture, but one of my favorites, I call it the water hands, right? Notice that's the glyph, the squiggly lines, that's the glyph for water over her hands. So she's literally the cool celestial waters is how they describe them in the text. The cool celestial waters of renewal. And I can't help but think of like a little child that's like, heartbroken or been injured and runs to its mom and wants to be held and soothed and comforted. It's very much that sort of a feeling, right? It also works on another level. This is also phonetic and grammatical as well. It's the word N-E, to me, U-N-E, come to me, come to me. So literally that's what that's spelling out, the gesture and its waters. So it's pretty cool, right? Working on lots of levels there. But she's welcoming you back into her embrace. Okay, I want to get to the queen here. The queen in Egypt is an earthly type of the goddess. They pattern themselves after her, okay? And very importantly, an Egyptian would consider that actual power is only gained in as much as one conforms to the life of the gods. Okay, did that make sense? You conform to the heavens, not the other way around, okay? you conform to the heavens and the heavens reach down in response. The two meet and real power is achieved. Okay, that's the idea there. Now, in this hymn to Hathor and Isis, there's this great line where it says, "None enter the palace without her approval." Okay, none enter the palace without her approval, and that's very indicative of the queen as well. In fact, often she's in some of the stories she's shown welcoming someone back into the palace. They have to wait for her approval, or she'll even signal her daughters, the princesses, often priestesses, to go out and to welcome someone into the palace. So this is a queen here, but she's holding the sistrum, or sistra in the plural. That's a musical instrument. We'll talk more about that in a second. It has a lot of different levels of meaning, but right here, it's kind of that idea of like, I vouch for this guy. I've given my approval. Okay, so now you can go before the king and the queen. Okay, don't kill him. And the king and the queen, the queen was no mere bystander. I have to make that point clear in Egypt, right? She's shown putting down rebellions, rallying troops, communicating with foreign dignitaries, conducting matters of state, right? She's got temples and tombs and pyramids. All of the religious texts can also be dedicated to queens. So this is no wallflower, right? She's a significant figure. And I'm chosen this one that I showed on the slide before and here. This is the Queen Nefertari. And I'm using her not because she's the typical queen, because she's not, but rather because she's so close to what their ideal is. Okay? She was much beloved by the people, much beloved by her husband, and she's like the archetype queen, or one of them. And so here, this is Abu Simbel at the southern tip of Egypt, and we have this double temple complex, right? It's kind of a his and hers thing. Now, her temple, it's actually dedicated to Hathor and Nefertari. Hathor is a mother goddess, okay? Or you could even say it's dedicated to Nefertari as Hathor, or perhaps Nefertari in her capacity to become Hathor. Many people note that she's depicted at the same height as her husband here, which is very apropos for this temple. Here's the layout, okay? And so now I'm going to take you through this temple and how this would have proceeded. So we have the facade here, that's what we just saw, the entrance and a vestibule. And then we have this main hall, okay, number 3, this main hall. Then there's 3 doors that lead into this transverse chamber, okay, number 4. And then that leads into 5, the innermost chamber, or you might call it a Holy of Holies, okay? So as soon as you pass the facade and you arrive at the entrance, you're greeted by Hathor. That's this goddess on the left. Now, remember I said, none enter the palace without her approval. That's so much more so true of a temple, okay? And Hathor, this mother goddess, actually is considered the temple, okay? She can be considered a temple. That's literally how you write her name here. Her name is this glyph with the hawk inside of that box, okay? That's 2 different words. The box all by itself is Hut, meaning temple, palace, mansion. And then the hawk is Hor, or Horus, right? So she's literally the temple of Horus, right? She is the temple. And so right here, she's greeting you at the entrance to give access or not. Now here's this main hall, okay? So that's that first chamber with the 6 pillars. We can see 4 here. And this, I want you to think of this as the realm of the priestess and the daughter, okay? That's what's going on here. All of these pillars have those sistrum on them. That's that musical instrument I pointed out that one shakes, okay? It's used almost exclusively by a priestess, okay? And it almost always has Hathor's face on it. It's an implement sacred to Hathor, okay? Here's some other images of it, and priestesses holding them. Okay, that's the sistrum. And it's about vibration, right? And movement and motion and life and progress, all the things that we've been talking about, right? That's encompassed with that, and there's so much more to it as well. But yeah, that's a whole part of this. And the whole place is working that way. It's very musical, okay? And music would have been a big part of what happens in the temple, right? And the priestesses would have been a big part of that, with singing and with making music. So before we go further, I have to discuss Mot. This is Mot. She's got the feather over her head that I have circled there, or here. This is Mot. She is the personification of truth and order. Okay? Mot is light and truth. She's what is correct, rightness or righteousness. And above all else, one strives to live in harmony with Mot. And her presence here in the temple is absolutely required, okay? Because she has to be there to approve and authorize any of the rituals that are performed there. Without Mot, this is all just make-believe, okay? You've got to have that. You have to be in harmony with the heavens, like I was trying to say earlier, okay? Otherwise, it's just play pretend, okay? Hathor says, I place Mot in your heart in order for you to do it. So this is the organ sensitive to that light and truth is the heart. Even the gods are dictated by Mot. In the top left corner there, you can just barely see the bark, the tip of the solar bark. This is the bark of the gods moving through the cosmos. They're guided by Mot. You see the feather on top of the head here, right? So they're being led by that. They themselves are adhering to what is true and correct. Or her wings spread protectively. Or an offering of Mot, a very important offering. We'll actually talk more about that in a moment. But Hathor places it in your heart for you to do it. So you come here with a measure of that light and truth. And you're meant to be true to it, right? And to be sensitive to it. And to the accumulation of more. To being able to discern between truth and error. And to continue to accumulate greater light and knowledge, right? And that's done in the heart. And this is the weighing of the heart, the psychostasy, where it's being weighed or you're being assessed against the Mot feather of light and truth, okay? So your heart is your judge, right? It's going to speak for or against you. Okay, now the whole thing is kicking off here with Hathor offering the Manat necklace to Ramses, okay? So it's called the Manat, this necklace here, and she's offering that to him, okay? So this is like offering her favor. It's initiating assent, okay? The female initiates. Volumes have been written about Hathor. There's a lot to her. So very briefly, it doesn't really do it justice, or her justice, but Hathor is the goddess of beauty, of love, of pleasure, of romance, sex, dance, music, beer, joy, okay? All of the wonderful things in life that make it worth living, right? She brings vitality and color to life. That is Hathor. So when she offers this Manat, right, this is like her transmitting love, beauty, and desire, okay? I said earlier, without Mot, without truth, right, it's all make-believe. Well, without Hathor, without this love and desire, it's all lifeless. Okay, it's just this dead pantomime. You're just going through the motions with nothing there. We said earlier, Dwa is the, what did I say? It's the dawn. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's the dawn. And I went like this because this is also the glyph for it, right? It's also worship. It's their word for worship. It also means adore, okay? So without this sincere adoration, it's just pointless performance without any real power. It's like at her touch, all of this is going from black and white to, full color SpectraVision, okay? That's the Manat. This is an actual Manat. That's what it looks like, okay? And it's either worn by the priestess or it can even be held and shaken. Again, not unlike that sistrum, making a similar sound to it. More transmission of the Manat. And now we have, this is on the left, that's Nefertari, the queen, offering to a goddess named Anuket, okay? Anuket. And she's really cool. She's really unique among goddesses. Typically, worldwide, when you see a triad, you see a father, a mother, and a son, okay? Here, we have a father, a mother, and a most high daughter, okay? That is Anuket. Remember I said in this main hall, that's where we're at. This is the realm of the priestess and the daughters. So that is how Nefertari is approaching her, okay, as a daughter to the exemplar daughter. There's a lot more to Anuket. She's the goddess of beauty with power over the floodwaters. But here, in this context, that's kind of what's being emphasized is the daughter status, okay? Now, meanwhile, Ramses is kind of going on his own journey here, and he's offering to the gods. And then each of them, these images are side by side. Individually, they approach a god and a goddess. Okay, so Ramses approaches Horus, or Horakati, and she's approaching Hathor. In this context, Horus and Hathor are being used as exemplars or the archetypes of the glorious couple. Okay, a glorious, exalted couple. That is Horus and Hathor. Not unlike probably the most iconic couple in Egypt, Isis and Osiris. Okay, Isis and Osiris. And I love this, the glyphs of their names, because it really is evocative of their whole relationship. His name is spelled with the throne hieroglyph. Okay, that's what that is, a throne. And then we have the I up here. That's in Egyptian, that's ir. It's the verb meaning to make, to do, to create, or to achieve. So he literally achieves the throne. Okay? And then Isis, check her out. She literally is the throne. Okay? She's the throne. This is the lofti, they call it. It's the feminine. It's what makes it feminine, like grammatically. And then this is an egg. Okay, perhaps symbolic of a primordial nature or even her own ability to like gestate life. Okay, so without her, he's got no throne. Do you see that? Without her, he has no throne. Without him, she's just got an empty chair. The two are completely mutually reliant upon one another. Okay? Another beautiful image. This is Isis with her wings spread around Osiris. Okay? The feminine is this embracing, encircling, enfolding, and closing. Okay? So she's around him. Probably one of the most famous symbols, right? The winged sun disk of Egypt. Again, lots of different levels of meaning here, but definitely one is the union of the male and the female. Okay? We have her wings and his light, and the two go together, right? The two are, ascending and moving through the heavens, shining down together, okay? It's that union of male and female, as one level. And then here's her again with her wings around him. She is the protectress. And I really want to make that clear because as incredible and as amazing as Isis is on her own, I assure you there is none more protective of the sacred masculine than her. Okay? So she's enfolding him. She is protecting him. She's got his back. She's surrounding him. She is formidable and fierce. One of her titles is Isis Wirit Hekau, the Great of Magic. Isis, the Great of Magic. Here's her actually at the bow of this boat. Do you see her stretching out her arms, using that magic? And she is literally subduing Apophis, okay? Apophis is this serpent down here. This is actually Isis again, binding Apophis, or here, same thing, binding and cutting up Apophis. Apophis is the embodiment of like chaos and rebellion, okay? So that's what she's doing. In the bottom picture there, you see her again on the boat. That's Isis kneeling at the bow, and she's got her chains binding and restraining. Set is being depicted as the hippo. Remember I told you Set, he was the one who murdered Osiris. So he's being restrained by Isis while Horus is spearing him. She's kneeling on that Mott stone of truth because everything is being dictated by what is correct. And then over to the right, you see Horus has placed his enemies under his feet, right? He's literally on top of him. But look, she has helped place him there, right? She's got that right hand. Now, this is not a hard and fast rule, okay? But very often, the right hand would be symbolic of the active principle, while the left would be more passive and receptive, okay? So she's not just standing there doing nothing, right? Notice she's even at the same height as him, even though he's on an enemy. They have achieved that victory together, okay? Like I said, she is formidable, so much so that she's often depicted as a lioness. There's many different names and titles for the lioness in Egypt, but probably the most famous is this goddess here, Sekhmet. This, I don't know if you can see that. This is a little scepter right here. That's the word sechem. It's a scepter. Literally means power. So her name translates to the powerful one, or she who is powerful. That's her name. And as I said, she is fierce and she is formidable. There's the lioness standing next to a pretty statue. Here she is, Sekhmet. So, sometimes I hear this idea promoted that maybe she's too special or too delicate to talk about, right? That would be laughable to an Egyptian. As though anything we could do or say would diminish her glory and awesomeness, right? Okay, that's Sekhmet. Let's move on. So for Ramses, this is culminating in this main hall with the offering of Mot. Okay, this is one of the most important offerings. He's offering Mot. Now, there's a lot of layers to this, but one perhaps is Mot is often called the daughter of Amun-Ra. Okay, she's the daughter of Ra. And so in this case, I would submit that she could be even symbolic of Nefertari, the queen herself here, okay, as a daughter of God. Like Ramses saying, look, I have found and I have united with one of your daughters, right? A Mot, a wisdom, one with the capacity to become like them, okay? It's also, again, indicating that everything is being done in accordance with her approval. Also, I've got to say, to offer Mot presupposes that you have it, right, to offer. So, hey, I've been true to that light and knowledge that I have, and I've been able to acquire more, and now here I am offering that light and truth back to glorify my God. Okay, that's all kind of being expressed here. Now, for Nefertari, for the queen, it's culminating here at the doorway, okay? And note the shape, it's like that Akhet, okay, with that sun disk right in the middle, right? And so you've got this, this is like the Akhet, okay? On one side, on the left, we have Hathor. On the right, we've got Mut. You remember Mut? Remember that word? Mut means mother, right? She's the vulture. So this is the mother goddess. And that's what's happening here. We are seeing Nefertari about to pass through a threshold, right? One of those horizons, one of those gates. She is in her Kheper, her stages of becoming. And she's moving now. As we go to the next chamber, she's moving from, let me try that again. There we go. This realm of the daughters and into the realm of the eternal mothers. Okay? Now, just my 2 cents, I think we've got 3 doors here. I think, again, we have a his and her situation with her on the left and Ramses on the right, and then later the two will be coming together in the center. Okay? So as we pass through this left with Nefertari, we see her at the top making an offering to Hathor as a cow. Okay? Way up high. This is up high in the room. On this boat sailing through the field of reeds in the heavens. Okay? Now opposite, at the other end, the his end, we have Ramses making the very same offering, okay, to Hathor. So they're on opposite ends of that building. Now Hathor is a cow, right? Yes, she is the heavenly cow. Can you see the stars on her belly here? Or her legs as the 4 pillars of the earth? The Milky Way, right? And the cow. The cow lactates year-round. Okay, what? Really? Already? Holy smokes. Okay, we're going to go over. She lactates year-round. She is nearly universally all animals can drink from her, and here she is suckling, right? She's even shown with the cow ears. That's a glyph in and of itself in ancient Egypt. Sejim, the ear, all by itself. They'll just write the cow ear. That's sejim, to listen, to hear, okay? Because she is not a distant, uninvolved goddess that one only whispers about, okay? She's very approachable. She listens to her children, cares for them deeply. And for the Egyptians, she's an intensely personal goddess that they could talk to. She's also the goddess of music, right? So she's got to have a good ear, okay? Hear the right tones and the right notes. All right, we're moving on. Oh, but I have to cover this. Probably the most stunning picture in the temple, right? This is the female triad. This is the queen, dead center here. This is Nefertari, flanked by Hathor on the left and Isis on the right, as mothers. That's what the hieroglyphs above are talking about, their role as mothers. Now, I've got to say this too. Isis is also the star Sirius, Okay, that's her star. Less known, but equally true, so is Hathor. She's the star too. The heliacal rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, signaled the Egyptian New Year. So on one level here, this is like signaling Nefertari's coming ascension, okay, what's about to happen for her. Now, the goddesses are always described as fiery, right? They're the cobra, right? That uraeus that's on the brow, that's a flame-spitting cobra, by the way. Or they're the lioness with a flaming sword. Or they're the fiery eye of Horus, or eye of Ra. You know the eye, right? The most ubiquitous, probably, Egyptian symbol, the eye. That's also, at one level of meaning, the goddess. So this is flames. And note, they're even crowned with the sun, okay? So when you're seeing this, picture Nefertari literally encircled in glorious flames, okay? She is being brought into their presence where they are blessing her, they're instructing her, they're endowing her with power. Then she goes to the triad again, okay? This father, mother, and daughter. She's identifying with both aspects. I'm sorry, there's so much more I could say about all of this, but we got to keep going. This is a long shot of that transverse chamber from the his side looking over to the hers side, okay? And then, like I said, they come together right there in the center on the left. This is where they come together. This is the first time we see this in the temple, the king and the queen together before this goddess, Taweret. A lot I could say. All right. Taweret, her name literally translates to the great woman. That's her title, the great woman. And above her it says the mother of the gods, of all the gods, actually. Okay, then it culminates in the inner chamber, the innermost chamber. It's really small. It's dark because you've been going toward the west, right? The setting sun, death, that kind of thing. So you're in the west. That center image, I've been trying to capture the feel of it. That's what you would see if you're just looking in. And then these are on the side walls, okay? So on the left, you have Nefertari offering to Mut and Hathor again, the mother and daughter. She's identifying with them. She's offering incense. I know this is kind of hard to see, but she's holding a long censer here that holds incense. And it's shaped like this. It's kind of this little bent arm with this hand kind of cupped, and there's incense in there, okay, that's being offered. The word for incense is senecher. Remember, necher is divine. Senecher is to make divine. So this is like divinizing herself, right? Recognizing, that she can join their company. Over on the right is Ramses making a similar offering, a much misunderstood picture here, I've got to say. He's offering to himself and to the queen, enthroned as a god and goddess. Now, I would say this is not a case of self-aggrandizement, okay, or worshiping the God within. This is knowing yourself. This is recognizing your future potential, okay? He's offering to himself and the queen enthroned, right? Having achieved the throne someday, just like Isis and Osiris, the pattern that they follow. And then in the center, I know this is really hard to see. It's been destroyed. But this is Hathor and the king coming out of the west. By the way, this whole temple is carved right out of the stone. This isn't built, okay? This is carved out of the stone. That's what the image is supposed to look like. So this is two as one, okay? They make a single silhouette. She's coming out of the west, facing the east, and the king is literally emerging from between her legs, okay? And this is rebirth to new levels of glory. Two as one. But I have to point out, they are not merged as like an androgynous being, okay? They have still retained their identities. It's still male and female. Even though we have the single silhouette, it's two as perfectly as one united, okay? They're together. Being one deprives neither of their individuality. They are equally reliant on each other. Okay, this is the exit. They would now exit through the center as this Akhet. And then this is flanked on either side. This is the entrance. You're flanked by this victory over your adversaries. This is the king and the queen together. Note she's got that right active hand up like magic. So she's just not like cheering them on, go Ramses. This is her actively participating. They do it together. They are overcoming the forces antagonistic to their own progression, right? And this is the entrance, right? The exit and the entrance. You've come back to where you've started. The origin is the destination. Except you've gone through all of this, right? So it's not just the same. It's not this hamster wheel, right? You've you've gone through all that. You're increased, you're improved. So it's more like this ascending spiral, okay? And how awesome is that, right? If you come to Egypt with me, this is just our first stop. Now, I have to end with this. I want to briefly acknowledge the divine females in my own life. There have been many, and at the very top of that list is my wife, my business partners, my sister, my mother, my grandmother. It has been a gift from the Heavenly Lady to have you all in my life. I want to dedicate this modest effort to you guys. And if you don't hear anything else, I want you to hear this ending here. No more commentary. This is my translation of an actual text of Hathor in her own words. Okay? This is her speaking. I am Hathor, who brings her Horus and who proclaims her Horus. And my heart is that of the lion god. There is no limit to my vision. There are none who can encircle my arms. I am the primeval lady of all, who lives on Mot. I am the Uraeus who lives on truth, who lifts up the faces of all the gods, and all the gods are beneath my feet. I am she who elevates his beauty and assembles his glorious powers. I am the Eye of Horus, whose equal does not exist. I am she who established his name, and I have flourished. I came into existence before the heavens were fashioned, and they give me praise. And before the earth was founded, and it exalts me. I have searched and sought out. And see, I have acquired what I sought out, and come with my horns and display my beauty. Come before my face, and I will cause you to be exalted. I am the mistress of the helm. I am the lady of life, the guiding serpent on the radiant paths. I am the third one, the lady of illumination who guides the great ones. I am the mistress of magnificence on the paths of the cloudy sky. I am Hathor, mistress of the northern sky. I am Isis, born of Nut, who displays her perfection, who gathers her glorious power, and who lifts up Ra. Thank you.